So, hey everybody, welcome to the Tatter-a-fact podcast where PMU gets real, raw, and unapologetic. I'm Teryn Darling with Girls Inc., your no bullshit mentor, and I got a no bullshit guest with me today. I'm super excited, but I got 25 years in the game. My guest has longer. So, with her and I doing this episode together, we are both going to raise the bar, and you are going to help us keep it there. So without further ado, let's welcome Robin Hayes Velez to the Tatter-a-fact podcast. Hey, Robin.
Hi.
Hey, I'm going to give them a little bit of background, and then if I miss anything, then you can fill in the blanks. But you and I met probably 24 years ago at the SPCP. At an SPCP conference. And I remember meeting you. We headed off, and then we just kept seeing each other at SPCP conferences. And then once Facebook came up, we connected that way. And we've always just stayed connected. You've been using LI pigments your entire career, and your career spans 32 years.
Yeah.
32 years, Robin. I thought I was a little bit of special last week in Miami when
you were
Rose and Leanne Law and Shay, and some of my friends attended the workshop that I did there, and they presented me with a cake with the goat. Rose did that. And she got me a little a little silver medallion necklace with the goat. And they really celebrated my 25 years. And it was really emotional for me.
Yeah, I saw you choke up.
I choked up because I'm wondering if you're like me. I wake up every day not thinking. You don't think about that your name might be more recognizable than others. You don't wake up thinking that, ooh, I own Girls Inc. I don't wake up thinking like any of that. I wake up with anxiety and a little bit of stress, my big to-do list, and just working, just working. And it's really only at like conferences, like I get reminded that that my name is recognizable, and that and I've had like a positive impact on a lot of people. So after 32 years, how do you wake up in the morning? Do you wake up like, wow, 32 years? Or are you like me? You don't even think about it or acknowledge that for your own self. You just wake up, it's another day, you go to work, you do your thing.
It's usually wake up, take some ibuprofen because my back is killing me, take a hot bath, drink my coffee. I wake up grateful that I have a career that I love.
Yeah.
As far as like who I am and who knows who I am, I've never really cared so much about seeing my name in lights, right? I've always been, a team player, but I've never really, never been a trainer, quote unquote. I've never repped a line. I've never anything. I'm helpful when people ask, but I just, sort of stay in my own kind of lane. But,
is it because you're shy?
I'm not shy.
Because I don't see you as shy.
No,
because you could have had that. Yeah. I think because you're a really good artist, you do good work, and you're a no-nonsense girl, that really comes across, the way you answer on Facebook groups, the way you mentor, you're very direct, you're a no bullshit girl, you always have been.
Yeah. I think I'm just, I was raising kids, and that was my next job when I would leave the day at 5, so trying to do that. And I'm back doing it again. I got remarried and we have custody of 2 boys. So I think for me, I had to decompartment, like, okay, this is this and this is this now. And I'm back to playing, mom and wife again. So I do as much as I can. And I try to also do nonprofit work to make myself feel good,
Right.
and try to give back, like you say, on the forums and things like that. But, sometimes when you become a quote unquote expert, you feel like you know everything. I don't ever want to feel like I know everything. I still want to go and train. I still want to go to shows. If people know who I am, that's great. If they don't, that's fine too. I mean, it's just one of those things, I guess, for me, I didn't really need extra work. I was so busy, and I'm still very blessed to be so busy. I mean, I was doing 10, 12 people a day, and then 8, and then 5, and now I'm like 3. I'm good,
That's me. I cut down to like 2 or 3 clients a month because I got burnt out. I couldn't keep up with the big studio, and I was doing 1 year apprentices. We had 7 or 8 apprentices at any one time, and if they weren't ready at a year, like, we didn't cut them loose. They could stay. We had artists, and it just got to be too much after 13 years. So we didn't renew our leases. So I had to like cut some of my workload to get out of that burnout stage. It was getting just to be way too much, and I was becoming really unhappy. You don't realize burnout, how devastating burnout can be. And it took a long time to recover, to be honest with you. I thought the minute we closed the studios and I was just working with my small team, running the store, making products, and lecturing, I thought that we would be cured. Kat and I would instantly be cured. But then I was talking to Carla, and she was like, no. It takes months and months and months to recover from burnout. She goes, burnout's almost like, it's like trauma almost. I'm like, I didn't really realize that. But it's been 1.5 years since we've closed the studio, and I don't miss it. While it ran, I loved it, and ended up getting burnt out towards the end, and now I love where I'm at in my career and what I get to focus on. But having, I'll have a lot of people say to me, Robin, well, you're really lucky. Like, you're people know who you are in this industry. It's like, there's good things about it, yes, but there's also a lot of, you also become a target. I have learned, my career wasn't cured or curated or intentional. It was more organic, and I think it just started happening when I became a distributor for LI. It was just this organic, natural thing, and then it snowballs, and then and then you're where you're at, and then
I mean, it becomes a passion, and
right.
If you didn't have a partner that you had to actually spend time with, you probably would work it. I'll always say if we divided how much time we spend in our business by the hour, we would never take that job.
No. It's like, and it's like, thank God I have Kat, right?
Yeah.
And we've been together 21.
Turn it off.
Yeah, I've been together 21. She helps me turn it off. And I don't know if I would have a partner if I didn't have a partner like Kat that understood the way 100%. My mind is wired. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative. I always have to be creating and working and producing and results in this. I'm just wired that way. I always take too much on. And she's a Pisces. I'm a Virgo. So she always says, you're the flower, the delicate flower, and I'm the gardener. And it's so true, Yeah. But so we're a good pair. I don't know if anybody could put up with me if it wasn't someone other than Kat who took time to understand me and understand how important permanent makeup and artists were to me, So it's like her and PMU. Those are my 2 lovers.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, my closest friends and yours too are colleagues. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody else understands what we do, really.
No. And how stressful it can be. I mean,
for sure.
So was your mom in PMU? Do I remember correctly? Yeah, I remember your mom.
I think she retired about 11 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that.
And
I got to
yeah,
meet
she
her a
was,
couple of times.
yeah, she wasn't really, same thing. She wasn't really big into everything, but she had started in the beauty field when she was 16. So by the time she got into it and I was into it, she was just sort of petering on her way out. But yeah, she did her apprenticeship for a year and then I took over after that.
Okay.
Did mine.
So you followed in your
So
mom's footsteps.
yeah, so
Did
we
she
both,
train you?
she didn't train me. We both trained with GJ Normand, who had
Okay.
trained with Mary Jane Hackey, and we were trained on coil machines from Spalding and Rogers.
Yeah.
And the only pigment we could get back then was from Spalding and Rogers, and we mixed it ourselves. And we had
The good old days.
8 colors.
Right? The good old days.
White, black, brunette, blonde, maroon, peking red, and I don't even remember what the rest was.
Oh,
And you
I know.
mixed,
I know.
and you had an 8, 10, 12, and 14.
Yeah.
Sitting in test tubes.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? It's crazy to think about all those years ago. And you can think back 32 years. I can think back 25. So yeah, you got a few years on me. So it's really interesting. So maybe you and I should get together and do the tree and and write the history of PMU. I mean, I think someone needs to for the new generation and even the generation like right behind us or 2 behind us. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's important that our history and our roots gets documented, and
I agree.
The way it has in body tattooing. All right, so let's dig into some subjects.
Yes.
Okay. So I really wanted you on here because I love how direct you are. You're very direct. You're so direct. Some people could think you're rude, take you as rude. Has anybody ever given you some shit and said, "Oh, you're rude," or "You're"?
I have, or people think that I'm. I found out later I have adult ADD, and you tend to just spurt stuff out. So
yeah.
technically,
well, I know you, so I can read your pose, and I know you, so I can hear your voice and the tone. Right? But people that don't know you, or me, it's happened to me too, when I've answered something directly.
Yes.
They can't hear the tone by, with the typed word. And so they can put any tone to your words. And what you're saying can be misinterpreted as being mean or, rude or whatnot. When, as we're typing it, we're typing it with a really nice tone and great intention, thinking, this is going to be super helpful. And then you get a response back that is like, that was really rude, or you don't have to be so negative, or, but I know that you know a lot, and I like that you're just like a no bullshit person. And we need more of that in the industry, because I think the industry is full of bullshit artists, smoke and mirrors, scams,
100%.
People just trying to make money, telling new artists things that they want to hear rather than what they need to hear. To make sales. There's just a lot of that right now. And then you have, of course, that's not the entire industry, but that's a lot of the industry. And then you have your good old girls and boys out there doing good things, speaking truth, trying to dispel the myths. So let's dig in. You wrote a great article on pigments and your experience with pigments. So where can people find that article?
So I wrote the article for NEHA, which I'm on the board of, and it's the National Environmental Health Association. So it is obviously on that website. I believe the SPCP has posted it as well. I don't know. much else where it would be, just because, you know, I haven't posted it on my pages or anything, because technically it was for the regulators.
Okay.
Per se, for them to sort of understand, because the regulators in our industry, whether it's body or cosmetic work, have 2 hours of training to know what to look for when they go in. So I am speaking in October for, say, Alabama. So they don't even really know, some of them don't know where expiration dates are, where to look for expiration dates, or did they understand that a microblading tool is a one-time thing, or things like that. They really have no idea, because they're also, you know, doing septic tanks and, you know, restaurants and everything. And we're really low into the totem pole.
Right.
Unless we have an outbreak of Hep C, and technically that's all they care about. And they just want to make sure that everybody's doing everything clean. And a lot of them are very new in the industry, and some of them now I'm noticing are very young. So when we have our monthly meetings, we're on this huge Zoom, and I see all these people, they don't know the difference between microblading in a hand, you know, the machines. They don't know. They don't know about pigments.
They have no idea.
They don't know about aftercare. They don't know about anything. So, you know, whereas we don't really want to be regulated, it's happening.
Right.
You know, everything's going to happen eventually. We at least can give them the knowledge. I'm on this board with some old school tattooers, some old school piercers, and, you know, we're going in and just keeping up with the BPP and that kind of stuff. But they understand that. They don't really understand so much of what we do. And definitely they don't understand the cosmetic side of it.
Gotcha. So we can put that link when this podcast goes live. So it's NEHA.com?
.org.
NEHA.org. Okay.
Right.
So we can put that.
And there's,
we'll just put that in the comments, and then they can link onto it and read it. And it's not like a big read. It's, so some people get overwhelmed when they see like the, you know, like pages. It's not a big read, but it's a good read.
Yeah, I just tried to make it as understanding as possible without getting into the whole, you know, that's an 8-hour long, you know, course of delving into people not really understanding when they're taught that something's semi-permanent as opposed to permanent, which I still don't like the word semi-permanent.
I was just going to ask you that. How do you feel about the word semi-permanent?
No.
Yeah, me neither. No. And that debate's been going on since you and I started. You know, some debates are as old as, you know, 25, 30 years, and they're still going on. So I don't know if ever the industry as a whole, like everyone will ever agree that it is permanent. Just because it fades at some point, it's semi-permanent. It's permanent. And just like body tattooing fades, it just takes a lot longer to fade because they're carbon-based, you know, pigments, but they do fade. You know, my dad had a tattoo that was almost completely gone. You know, got it when he was in his 20s, and by the time he was like, you know, I think in his 50s, you could barely read it. It was like almost completely gone on his arm. So yeah, I don't like the word semi-permanent either. I believe it's permanent. I mean, if you get it and you don't like it, now you got to go do removal. Right? That's pretty permanent. It's pretty permanent until that pigment decides to leave the skin. So,
well, I just think it's a little misleading to the public.
Don't you think that's why it's used?
Yeah, it's another marketing tool for people to be like, oh, like, you know, people still think to this day microblading isn't a tattoo, you know. To tell these people constantly during consults.
And I wonder if these artists that use these terms, do they really like believe that? Or do they know otherwise or understand the argument on the other side, but they just use those terms because that's what attracts clients. It it helps calm the nerves of clients, right? I mean, if you're not using the word tattoo, if you're using the word semi-permanent, then that eases clients. Clients are more likely to get the service done. So I've always wondered do artists that use those terms really, really believe that? Or do they just use those terms to ease clients? Do you know what I mean?
Or also maybe they're using it because they know that they want to back. I have some people that just microblade in various areas I'm around, and they have people coming in every 6 months.
Oh,
which is just horrendous.
That's horrendous.
And by the time I get a hold of them, I'm like, oof, how many layers do you have in there that I got to now try to remove?
Yeah.
So, it's just, I've always worked with doctors and plastic surgeons, and, there's always new things coming out, and they're just reinventing the wheel. Like, oh, those were out 20 years ago and they didn't work, but somebody else has labeled them something else. It's just like cheap blush. Remember we did it.
Yeah.
We did eyeshadow. We did air dry concealer.
Exactly. We did.
So this is the reinvention of the wheel.
Yes. We used the blues. I remember Mary Jane Honke looked right at me and said, look at this. Look at this. And it was like 70s bright blue. And she goes, this is what blue turns into. And there's no getting rid of it. And so I remember Mary Jane Honke doing that, with me. Don't ever use blue, Teryn. Look what it turns into. And so yeah, but I mean, but they don't, the new generation, and maybe it's normal, Robin, because when we were kids, I remember my dad saying, don't do that. When I was a kid, blah, 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 blah. It's, you're going to hurt yourself. We didn't listen to our dads and our moms and dads. We went and just did it anyway. We wanted our own experience with it. So is it just normal for the new generation to say, well, fuck y'all. You can tell me that cheek blush ages shitty and eyeshadow ages shitty and too much titanium in the lips and doing those white lines, on the eye, white highlights. You can tell me that all ages like shit, but we're going to do it anyway. We need to learn for ourselves. We need to see it ourselves. It's almost like it's just human nature.
Yeah, I think it's more just not thinking they're going to be around in a few years to have to take care of it. And yet we'll be the ones stuck with it.
Yeah, right.
Long term, right? Like, you should be able to tell people, this is the deal. Long term, I can tell you this is going to do this, or I can tell you this isn't going to do this, or I can tell you I don't know. But, certainly if somebody were to tell me something, it made me think a little twice. And I'm still that way. I just tell people flat out, I'm not doing it. I want to sleep at night. Somebody down the street will do it.
Yeah, no, I'm still that way too. I was taught to be conservative and don't take risks take a certain amount of risk, right, to expand your skill and whatnot, but not too much risk that you could, cause damage or anything like that. But I mean, and we have been, to be fair, we have been proven wrong in a couple of areas, dark lips. Yeah. But to this day, I have never tattooed a dark lip because I haven't trained in it. But you and I were taught, and I went to a lecture of Mary Jane Honke's at the Golden Nugget here in Vegas. And I think it was for National Tattoo. She was speaking. She was really involved with National Tattoo. And it was, a lot of her lecture was on dark lips. And she was tattooing dark lips at the time, doing dark lips. And she showed 2, 3, 4 year aged results. And it wasn't good. It didn't age well. And she was showing that to teach us, which I thought was really brave of her. And, but Mary Jane Honke's a badass. She don't care. She's a badass. And and then, you know, seeing that for myself, and then our generation being taught not to tattoo dark lips. And then here comes, I don't know who the first one was, but the first one that comes to my mind is Carla from Sculpted, right? Who's become a very, very, very good friend of mine. I was just with her in Miami. And that girl, whew, I mean, look at her beautiful dark lips.
You figured it out.
Yes. But you know what I love about her? She's on the podcast in a couple of weeks. She's no nonsense, no bullshit. She'll tell you it's difficult. This can happen. That can happen. She doesn't say it's easy. You need to be highly trained. You need to understand all the risks involved, because there are risks. You can get dark spots. She's so like no bullshit about it. And that's what I like. She doesn't talk about it as if it's an easy procedure to learn, nor does she say, should any artist learn it? Do you know? And so she's very, very responsible with it. And that's what I really respect about Carla. But so we've been proven wrong on a couple things, but I think we're pretty right with the blush and the eyeshadow, and especially the white highlight line.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how that could ever age.
And impossible to get out.
Impossible to get out because it's all titanium. Do you know?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you have been using you've used iron oxides and organics.
Yes.
For a long time.
It was more organics because they were coming from Spalding and Rogers. And then the first real set was Derma International with Elizabeth. She was really the first one to come out with iron oxides.
Yep.
And then LI.
Yep.
And then carbons really didn't start coming out until microblading, and that was 7-8 years ago, maybe 10.
Well, and they think it's new, right? A lot of people in the industry think organics are new, but they're not. I mean, no. I used permanent solutions.
Yes.
You know, for my lips. I always have been an iron oxide girl, or for brows. Like, I prefer brow pigments not to have black carbon. And if they do have black carbon, like my Coco Tease has some black carbon, but it's a medium brown, so it only requires like a nano amount of black carbon just to give it that punch and that vibrancy. But if I go into the darker tones, in my mind, that means higher amounts of black carbon. So I just don't prefer high amounts of black carbon in my brow pigments. And that has a lot to do with the way I work, right?
Right.
So we have to take that into consideration. It's not iron oxide versus carbon-based pigments. What's better? What's evil? I hate that. It has a lot to do with the skin you're working on. Is that skin cool? I'm going to pull gray. And the way you work. I use bigger needles, and I tend to pack in color the way I work. And I go proper depth. You know, I don't implant shallow. I go beyond the epidermis, and I go into that epidermal area. But, you know, some people are, you know, pro iron oxide and anti carbon based, and some are, you know, pro.
I mean, there's a place for all of it, right?
Right.
But when people understand the molecular structure and start getting deeper, you know, one is a lot heavier than the other.
Yes.
One is a lot lighter than the other. And to take that into account. So does that mean we're going to have the spreading over time, which we're seeing in microblading eyebrows?
Yes.
We're seeing how they get larger and larger the more they get worked on, and they turn into caterpillar eyebrows.
Right.
You know, so that's not something anybody's going to really be
is
taught
that
or understand.
Because the pigment's lasting too long?
Yeah, and I think in essence, it's almost like it's not inert to some degree. just sort of like when you see body tattoos from, the back in the sailor days, right? All that ink starts to spread out under the skin.
Yeah.
Whether you're using the lamp black and the furnace black. So certain areas where there's no fat, where it to sort of be stable per se,
right,
starts just sort of, spreading out as our skin spreads out as well.
right.
So there's so much scientificness you could do to it. But I can remember even Spalding Rogers blacks would say, don't use around the eyes.
Yeah.
Print it on the bottom.
Yeah. Right.
Flat
right,
out.
right,
They were
right.
trying to tell us
Yeah.
because they thought we were renegades. And we were, just like we thought the microbladers were renegades.
Right.
2 days classes all over again. They wouldn't even sell to us. Spalding Rogers was the only person that would sell.
Oh no, the body and I was in the body tattoo industry, way back when, and they hated permanent makeup. They thought we were a bunch of scratchers, and and we didn't take education seriously, and I mean they really hated us, And when I started the Girls Inc. store, there was a lot of body tattoo companies that would not allow me to carry their products. They wanted nothing to do with permanent makeup. One company, I had to write them like 12 to 13 times. And they finally, it took like 3 years and several emails, and they finally let me start carrying their stuff. And another body tattoo company, only as early as maybe 3 years ago, we emailed them and they still said no.
Interesting, right?
Very, very interesting. So carbon versus iron oxide. When it comes to eyeliner colors and work, like what you just said, doing eyeliners, what are your personal, I know what mine are, I've been very vocal about it. What are your personal philosophies, beliefs, and even your own rules, personal rules that you apply to yourself on who you will use, who and when you'll use carbon black on?
Okay. So if somebody's wanting a lash enhancement or a super fine line, and they are within a certain age, they've got, great lashes, the skin's perfectly, intact, so to speak. We don't have a lot of overhanging of skin or whatnot. That's normally where I would go in, a 3RL, 3-round shader, they have lash line enhancement, because it's going to last. And we know it's going to last longer, right?
And with carbon, and you'll use carbon on them. Okay.
Yeah. If they're, 75, I'm going to use a shader needle 9 times out of 10. And I'm going to go really soft on the lower lash. And then they always want it thicker on the top. And I'm going to go with more with an iron oxide, because I have seen, even though eyeliner is my favorite thing to do, and I've probably done 40,000 of them, but I have seen over time how they didn't leave that way. I saw them for a follow-up. They didn't leave that way. See them 5 years later, I see a little puddle, on the edge of the skin, little something, that I have to sort of fix. And I'm like, what happened there?
Yeah.
I know that's not my work. And so, now taking that into, there are certain people, they've got really leathery skin. They ride a motorcycle all the time. Iron oxide's not really going to work for them, in my opinion. They're going to be back and back and back.
Right.
So they're carbon people. So I just sort of have to take it with a grain of salt as far as that goes. But, I've got people that I did iron oxide on 25 years ago, and it's still there. I've got people I did carbon on, it's still there. I've got people that are coming in every 3 years with either one of them, and some need, some don't. So how is the body metabolizing either one of them?
Yeah.
Or if I use an iron oxide on them and they come back and they don't have a whole lot of color, then I'll maybe switch or do a hybrid,
Right. I think that's the big myth when it comes to eyeliners and black iron oxide versus black carbon is, I think the myth and what some people buy into is black carbon always heals blacker. Black carbon always implants easier. Black carbon will always last longer. And you and I know that's not true. And on the flip side, they think iron oxide blacks don't implant. Iron oxide black doesn't heal as black as carbon black. And iron oxide black is going to fade. You're going to have to do multiple touch-ups to get it all in there. And then it's going to fade in a year. And you and I know that that is not true, because I've done probably close to 6,000 eyeliners, and I've used both black carbon, 100% black carbon, 100% iron oxide, and a hybrid, a combination of, carbon and iron oxide blend. And I've seen, yes, black carbon heal super black, implant really easy, and last quite a few years and look amazing. But I've also seen black carbon on some clients not implant good. They come back with hardly any color. When I finally do get all the color in there, it's faded quickly. And on the flip side, I've seen iron oxide black, implant super quick and easy, heal really black, and last 7, 8, 10 years. And with some clients, no, iron oxide did not implant good. And it faded really quick. So you're right. It's the canvas. It's the body. It's how that skin and that body metabolizes the pigment you said. Carbon's not always going to perform as it's marketed to perform. Right? And iron oxide's not always going to perform as it's marketed to perform. I think the big dictator in performance, I've always said, is the skin and the body, the client itself. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because, I think to myself, I haven't seen so-and-so in a little while. I haven't seen so-and-so in a little while. Are they still alive? I wonder what it looks like or whatever. And then inevitably, I'll hear something or run into somebody or get a referral and they're like, she had hers done 20 years ago. It still looks good. I'm like, hoorah, But then we also think about people we did 24 years ago. I'm like, oh, wonder what that looks like now.
Yeah.
And you just, and you pray that you had the good fundamentals, that they still look good.
Yeah.
We were also too, we weren't using small needle groupings, and small needle groupings and carbon, disastrous if you don't know what you're doing, period, the end.
Yep.
Especially on eyeliners. So,
and especially on older skin,
Yeah, just
older skin. I think the shaders, whether it's, and you can go as small as a 3 shader, but it's just that flexibility of a shader. It hits the skin. And it flexes with the skin. It's more gentle on skin rather than liners. Liners are tight and rigid, and they're harder on skin. So, people with older skin, and they don't even have to be older. I mean, I've worked on women that are, in their 40s that just have thinner skin. You're starting to see some crepiness come at 40, and in a shader. I've always used shaders though. I mean, I think maybe maybe my 3rd year in PMU is when I got a shader in my hand. And that changed my eyeliner game. And the only time I use it, I do set up a liner. I always set up a liner in case I need a crisp a tip or crisp something up and I can't quite get it as sharp and crisp with my shader. Then I'll go in with my liner. But predominantly I'm a 5 shader girl for everything. Tops, bottoms, thin, medium, thick. Yep.
Me too.
You too? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So carbon, let's talk about the myth of iron oxide. And we touched on this a little bit, but we didn't go deep. Iron oxides don't implant. So the learning curve, right? I've got a podcast that I did on this. And it was a 3-part series. The learning curve on machines, on needles, and then on pigments. Because people give up too quick. And I think the biggest learning curve is with those pigments. Because especially if you're coming from carbon to iron oxide, they give up very quickly and they just come to the conclusion, iron oxides don't implant. Right. So I wanted your opinion. Me personally, I'm fluid in between carbon and iron oxide. I use loaded sometimes, which is all carbon based. I use LI's Forever Lips, 100% carbon based, no iron oxides at all. And then, you know, in the same day, I can use all iron oxide for an eyebrow. So I'm super fluid between iron oxides, 100% carbon based, and hybrids. I just quickly and easily, without thinking about it, adjust my pressure, adjust everything, and I'm fluid. But if you're learning, if you're coming from carbons to iron oxides, what do listeners, people listening right now that either have just made that switch, because a lot of people are switching. They're going, they're coming to iron oxides now, but they're struggling. Or those that want to make the switch, but they're hearing the noise out there. Don't make the switch. Iron oxides don't implant. What I just kind of want you to talk about that.
So everything sort of, you know, came, like I said, at one point in time. When microblading sort of came out, then was the shift to also have carbons made, sort of around the same time. So people that were used to microblading, also all the people that were training, a good amount of them from Europe, were using small needles. So therefore everything was flying in the skin, right? Now, if you were trained with small needles and carbon from the get-go, and you were trained well, I think that it's one of those things that is much easier to go that way than how we were, or at least how I was, where I was trained with larger needle groupings and iron oxide, but I knew how many layers I needed to do. I knew where the sweet spot was. I was also what you would consider, and most people would consider, a little bit more heavy-handed, because we trained with coils and then we trained with a pin machine. So it was all about the hearing, the vibration, whatnot. And then now we've got cartridge machines. You don't have to bend in the needle quite as much as you used to. So there's a little bit of getting into that. So I don't think, because of the consistency of the iron oxides being a little thicker, that people using small needles, they're not figuring out how to suck up the pigment properly or dilute it properly. You're a huge diluter. Yeah. You've got like 14 cups out there.
Oh, yes, I do.
You know, and not everybody sort of understands that. You know, we know when microblading came in, people were just diluting with half orange. It was like, no, you just need solution. You don't need the orange.
Yeah.
So I think that being stuck in that one way of doing something and only training in that one way of doing something, therefore, if you trying to go the other way, it's just a learning curve, you know. Right. And it's a learning curve that they don't necessarily think they need to spend money, time, and effort on learning. They just say, like you said in your podcast yesterday when I was listening to it about the machine, they're just like, it doesn't work. It's like, if you're not used to working with a thicker pigment, dilute it a little bit to get it to be able to suck up in your single needle or your triple needle or whatever you're used to. I personally think everybody needs to know how to use every single needle out there.
Yeah.
I have everything from a single in every kind of diameter all the way up to, you know, maybe a 15 curved Mac, you know. But I also have never been comfortable using mags on lips. Just haven't. Love them on eyebrows. Never used them on eyes. That's just me. I would do what works for me. And some people do what works for them. So I think that's it. They don't want to have to put too much into it.
Yeah.
The struggle isn't there, right? But yet you take somebody like me that didn't know how to use carbon, I had a Zion, and I immediately did an eyeliner with a Zion and a carbon blowout.
Yeah. Right.
And I knew what I was doing.
Right.
I was like, whoa, we've got a more powerful machine. We've got carbon.
Yeah. Well, even as seasoned artists, when we're learning something new, it's a struggle. You know, it might not be as big of a struggle or as long as a learning curve for someone like you and I that have done, you know, 20, 30,000 clients, but there's still that learning curve. We're not, you know, we're still susceptible to that learning curve. But I find a lot of people, not everybody, of course, but a lot of people just are not patient enough and not willing to, they don't have the stamina to work through that learning curve and get to the other side of like triumph and conquer, where now they're fluid. They can work with, you know, the small needles, with carbon-based pigments, and on certain clients, when it's going to be best for that client and what they're asking for, now they're super skilled with bigger needles and iron oxides. And they're masters with that, and they can float back and forth without any hesitation. And that's what I want to see for all artists. I think that will eliminate a lot of frustration, a lot of struggles, a lot of touch up, a lot of that, Robin, because with Girls Inc., you know, we get calls for support all the time. You know, we sell pigments, we sell needles. We even get calls, like sometimes they don't even use LI. They're using other brands, but not everybody is great with support, you know, but we'll take every phone call and we'll help everybody, whether they use LI or not, whether they bought from our store or not. And I'm just friends and colleagues with a lot of people that don't use LI or any of my products. And the incoming calls and the calls of frustration, I want to give up, they're so high right now. The volume is so high. And the common denominator is, they're using small needles, trying to use whip shading or pendulum with iron oxides. They're new to iron oxides, you know, or the opposite. They're using big needles and they're used to doing multiple layers and they're trying carbon. And so they're just frustrated. And and you know, it's okay to be frustrated. But for me personally, it was never okay to give up. I always wanted to get through the struggle, get through the frustration, and master it so I could be versatile.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, you have to take that person from point A to point B. However you get there, that's your job as an artist to figure out how to get there. Some people are super easy, and some people are going to take a little longer to get there, but you have to figure out what you got to do.
Right.
You know, do I need to go darker with the pigment or do I need to downsize my needle? Do I need to upsize my needle? You know, it's just, you need to, we have a palette, we have our needles, we have our paintbrushes. We need to know how to use all of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know how it is. People don't even know what 8 gauge, 10 gauge, 12 gauge. You know, we used to just call everything bug pins.
Bug pins, yeah. No, they don't understand. They don't understand. I saw someone the other day. Someone asked what a taper was, and I saw the answer, and I was like, "Oh my goodness gracious!" I said, "Oh my gosh, this girl don't even know what it is." It was just a completely wrong answer. And she told her the taper was the width of the needle. And I wanted to go on there and say, no, honey, that's that's called the diameter. The taper is the point. And whether it's long and sharp or shorter and blunter or anything in between. But, you know, a lot of artists are going to Facebook for help, for answers. And the people answering them don't even know the correct answers. So they're getting wrong answers. And I don't blame those going to Facebook for help. You know, some people are isolated in areas of their state where there's no other artists around, or I was just talking to an artist at the PMU World Live conference, and she's isolated with one artist, and but that one artist is, you know, not very kind to her, and you know, it's like, I don't know. I just think we're in this place where there's not a lot of good training, and a lot of people are going to Facebook for answers, and sometimes they're going to find the right answer and a good answer, but a lot of the times they're going to find the wrong answer, and that answer could hurt them as an artist.
Sure. Well, I think those of us that know the right answer, a lot of us have been blasted enough times by people that think they know more and, you know, don't have more than, you know, 6, 8, 12 months, a couple years in the industry, that we just give up because we feel like nobody really wants to learn.
Yeah.
Or they invested their money improperly. I mean, what did you say? 80% of the people that did fundamental training said that their fundamental training was horrible.
Yeah, it's usually not even fundamental. It's,
you know,
a lot of times, like people entering the industry, a large majority of them, it's signature training. You know, they're going to an artist that does one technique, one needle, or, you know, or one or two needles. And they do a very signature look, and one or two needles, one or two hand movements. That's how a lot of people are entering the industry. And there's nothing wrong with signature training. I do signature training. You want to learn my eyeliner style? If you come train eyeliner with me, that's 2 or 3 days. It's very signature to my specific way of moving, my needles I use. But my fundamental training was 12 to 18 months long. They learned all the singles right up to 11 mags, 18 shaders. They learned all the 6 core hand movements. They learned ombre, high saturation, low saturation, you know, and a lot of new artists, Robin, they're not getting that full spectrum, versatile, fundamental training. They're getting signature style training. And as you and I know, and a lot of them are figuring out on their own, small needles, whip shading does not work on oily, resistant, challenging skin. You know, you need to move into a bigger needle for that skin. You need to implant more pigment. You have to use different movements that implant more pigment. And that's where we're seeing a lot of struggles. We're getting calls. Do you know, when I see someone and all their pigment fell out, I look at the skin, and more times than not, it's oily, big pores, sun damage. You can tell it's resistant. And the first thing I ask is, what needle did you use? And oftentimes, almost all the time, it's a single or a 3RL. And then I'll say, what hand movement did you use? Pendulum or whip shading? You know, and great needles, great hand movements. I use them. But they're low saturation needles and movements. For some skin types, even to give them a low saturation healed result, we need to be using needles that accomplish high saturation combined with hand movements that deliver high saturation. Because that skin is just not going to hold a lot, and you're going to end up with low saturation anyway, even using big needles and, you know, high saturation movements. So that's what I've seen where the struggle is, and where education needs to really level up, and artists need help.
Yeah, more of an apprenticeship.
More an apprenticeship, yeah.
Yeah, and you have somebody at least for support, you know, as somebody training somebody, they should be there to support them themselves. I mean, that really should be a thing. And unfortunately, I think it doesn't happen enough. Now, obviously, some people are just never going to get it. But I feel like when you're taking somebody on, you're taking their money, you're throwing them out there, you need to, you know, you need to be there for them. That's just it. They're your babies, you know?
Yeah, 100%. You know, that's why I did this podcast. Not, you know, I started this podcast because it was COVID. And and you know, so many people were dealing with depression and isolation and lack of connection, myself included. And you know, and that's why it started, just kind of for entertainment and keep people connected. But it's turned into like a platform that I just want to provoke thought. You know, I just want to keep preaching and encouraging everyone who listens to this podcast to be critical thinkers, to think for themselves, be critical thinkers, and to be versatile, to be curious, go try different things. You know, I think that's really been the core of this platform. That's why I have all kinds of different artists on using different needles, different techniques, different philosophies. I don't always agree with, you know, my guests' philosophies, but we can talk about the difference of opinion in a way where we're not arguing, you know, and at the end of the conversation, I still love you dearly and have mad respect for you. We just don't agree on this particular subject. And I'm hoping that we can do that more. More artists can do that on the public forums and together. I think if the world can't do it, how can I expect the permanent makeup industry to do it? But do you know? But I hope the permanent makeup industry can slowly become better at that, because I think it will be empowering and uplifting and healthy for everybody.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I mean, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. You know?
100%. You know, I know the way I work is certainly not for everybody, not everybody's cup of me personally. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. You can't be everything to everyone. You know, not everybody's going to like you in this industry. You don't even have to do anything. You know, maybe they just don't like the way you look, or, you know, the way you speak, or, do you know, I mean, it's just...
Well, there's a sense of intimidation that comes with being, you know, a female and a prominent female and a strong female. And sometimes people are just intimidated, and that's enough. You know, that's enough for them to not like you.
Right.
Never spoken to you a day, and you know.
Yeah,
but
I know.
They're just intimidated.
They're intimidated.
And that's not. I mean, I get that a lot. Like, I hear that a lot. Like, oh, she's so intimidating. I'm like, have you ever come up and talked to me? I'm about as real as it gets.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I'm too real, but hey, I'm 55 now. I mean, it ain't gonna get any better.
Well, you know what Oprah said. You know, I'm a big Oprah fan. Everybody that knows me knows I'm a big Oprah fan. And you know, I remember when Oprah turned 50, and she said one of the best things about turning 50 is you just don't care what anybody thinks anymore. You know.
Yeah.
So there has to be some perks to getting older. And of course you don't like when you hear someone doesn't like you, or especially if someone takes it the next step and they have to like make a public post how they don't like you. Some people are like that even. You know, it can be hurtful. You know, I'm human. We're all human. But I just don't let it get to me the way I used to when I was younger. I've just come to learn you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but, you know, but I'm not going to stop speaking my truth and educating and being a part of the industry that I love so much. And I just think if you don't like someone or like what they said, just keep scrolling. Why do you have to stop and say something unkind? I don't know. Right?
I agree.
Keep scrolling.
I agree.
I don't know.
I try to help when I can. And sometimes I just find myself pulling back because I know it's going to go down a rabbit hole. And I usually don't have time to go down a rabbit hole.
No. And
so usually when I reply, I'm just like, I say something. And if somebody wants to reach out and go in more in depth to me personally, I'm fine. I just don't want to get on a big back to back thread about things, you know?
No, me neither. Well, because you have to recognize, and you're always helpful. I see you on the board. You're always helpful. But you're right. There's some people that will take your advice. They'll take it well. Some will take it with a grain of salt. And then there's others that, so maybe your experience, you've learned when you'll end up in that rabbit hole. It's like no matter what you say, you're not going to please them. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
come back. You know what I've learned is not everyone and everything deserves a response.
Amen.
You know, and in order to keep your sanity and keep your peace, not everyone and everything deserves a response. Even if someone's out there saying something unkind about you. You know, that too.
Sometimes no response is the best response.
Sometimes no 100%. Response is the best response. So yeah, we're aligned on education. Yeah. We're aligned on education.
So I'm in an apprenticeship state. I mean, Tennessee requires a year apprenticeship.
But you don't, do you offer apprenticeships?
Do you, I never have, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, tell me
why. I
have
not met with one single person who within the first 2 sentences didn't say to me or ask me how much money they can make, or looks like you make a lot of money.
Wow. Yeah.
And I right then, nope. I mean, this is without even meeting these people, you know, reaching out to me and saying, or calling it a side hustle or something. I'm like, this is my livelihood. This was my mom's livelihood. This is what put my children through private college. I mean, this is my career.
Right.
Don't take it as a side hustle. Like that makes my blood boil.
Right. So we all know the PMU industry is going through a purging right now. Sure, it's not its healthiest right now. And it's you know, we've seen a slowdown in PMU. And do you think it's because, not solely, but a part of the reason, Robin, is because of what you just said? There were so many trainers out there dangling the carrot, come learn PMU, make 6 figures. And PMU all did become a side hustle. It was appropriate to call it a side hustle rather than a craft, a career, an industry. And it was promoted as a side hustle, promoted as you can earn 6 figures in your first year. And it almost, I even think it became considered a beauty treatment rather than a cosmetic tattoo. And those people that bought into all that came into the industry on those grounds. It'll be a side hustle. I can make 6 figures. It's a beauty treat. Is that a part of what happened to the industry? 2-part question. And are those people that came in that way, are those the ones you're seeing leaving the industry? Or predominantly it's them leaving the industry?
So how I personally see it is the word microblading, of course, was a word that came from, you know, overseas. So there was no word technically as far as health departments or anything. So these people, predominantly, I think people that were doing eyelashes, those people decided they were training in eyelashes. They're like, oh, now we're going to train in microblading because that person would be great at it. They're used to working from behind. They've got the clientele. And so those people were pushing, this is semi-permanent. It's not a tattoo. So we don't have to go through the regulatory things that you would to do permanent makeup. And so I think that promotion led those people that way because people just wanted to do eyebrows. They didn't want to do lips. They didn't want to do eyeliner. They didn't want to do anything else. So I think then when they realized, okay, well, microblading, you know, it hits its highs and its lows. And then they realized they had invested a certain amount of money in it. They're like, well, now I want to do lips. Still don't want to do eyes. I just want to do lips. So they did another just lip class. And then during COVID, everybody was putting everything online. So they're like, I'll just learn online. So they really never, like you said, they had specialty training. They had 2 days, but they never really got the core of anything. And so they never really were great at everything or anything. They were just sort of, you know, little bits and pieces here. So therefore they obviously, some things failed and they didn't have any backup because the person was probably over in another country. So I think there is that. I even worked on a girl yesterday. I was removing her eyebrows. She got in the business. She went and did 2 days. She had to bring her own model. And she said to me, it's just easier for me to do laser and aesthetics. I just never really got into it. I was like, because you were never really properly trained, in my personal opinion. So I think there's that. And it's not easy. It's not easy holding a vibrating needle on somebody's face, much less somebody's eyeliner. You've got to have chutzpah. You know,
I always say balls. You gotta have balls.
That too.
To do it.
That too.
You really do. Imagine.
So, yeah,
you know?
I mean, some people are just never going to get it. Some people also, their just customer service is not there.
Right.
They don't have a warm and fuzzy.
Right.
You know, am I the best out there? No, is my client retention at 99.9%, 100%? Are my consults at 99.9%? 100%.
Yeah.
But I've got my customer service down to the nitty gritty. I don't leave my office until all those phone calls are returned. You know, people have my cell phone number. I still do everything myself. I have nobody working for me, and I'm still in 2 different states.
But you know, Robin,
I handle that stuff. Yeah.
You don't need to be the best out there. You are a solid artist. You're solid. You're a good artist. I see you've been seeing your work for 25 years. You know, I looked up to you in my early days. I'd look at your work and aspire to do work like that. You're doing eyeliners. I listened to your lectures at the SPCP. You're a solid, good artist. You are well-rounded. You learned the fundamentals early on, and you continue to study and practice and fall back on those fundamentals, and you learned client care. You're like total package. You're total package. You're that. But it took you a long time to get there. I think people have this misconception they should have all that in a year, you know, and it doesn't happen. So I always tell people, you don't need to be the best. And who is the best? There's a lot of amazing artists out there. There's a lot of really good artists out there, and you're one of them. You're one of them. You know, you don't have to be speaking at conferences on these big stages all over the world to be a good artist. Many amazing artists choose not to do conferences and conventions and speak. You know, they stay in, you know, their city, and they just do their thing, and they do small trainings and one-on-ones. I think that's your secret sauce. That's your magic. Is you just knew to learn all the needles. You knew to learn, and you're still willing to learn. I mean, you just said it, you know, not too long ago. You wanted to learn carbon-based, and you got a migration, you know, and it takes balls to learn something new. And I bet you that migration horrified you, and you probably didn't sleep for a fucking week and cried like a baby, and you were right? But did it stop you?
No, because I just lifted it out.
Right?
But there you go. I mean, I needed that backup to know how to take care of something I did. I mean, you have to also know how to take care of stuff. It happens.
Yes.
Things happen.
Yes.
Things happen.
Okay. So let's jump to, because this is going to fall kind of right in place with this, is how do you feel about, okay, so there's a trend right now, low saturation, right? Everything's low saturation. If it heals beyond low saturation or high saturation, like some clients want, then you get jumped on. You know, you can get called out as you need to go back to training. That's old school. You ruined her. It's just horrible what the comments that will come in if you're an artist that posts high saturation work, like eyebrows. Like Shay Danielle just got jumped on. But then she posted her healed, right? She was using iron oxides, 100% iron oxides. But she got jumped on for using a mag, and the fresh look.
I remember seeing that.
Yes, the fresh look was high saturation. And she had people coming on there telling she was causing fibrosis and scarring and how dare you showcase this and market this as okay. And she's been tattooing for 15 years. She's a brilliant tattooer. That girl knows her shit like you know your shit. And then she posts, you know, she took a couple days because, of course, when that happens, it can upset your being, right?
Sure.
But then she came back as graceful as she is and professional as she's always been and posts the healed, which was stunning. Soft. Maybe it was higher saturation, but soft. Once it heals, the edges are soft if you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Sure. It doesn't look like a sticker if you know what you're doing. You can do high saturation brows and have those edges, that couple of millimeter around the edge, still heal smoky and soft if you know what you're doing. And it can be beautiful on the right women. And a lot of women want high saturation. I mean, if they come in with their pencils and they're applying pressure with their pencils and they got a solid pencil brow, they want a high saturation eyebrow as a healed result.
Plus they're wearing full face makeup.
Full face makeup. Well, we got to deliver that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And we just got to do it skillfully so it doesn't look like a sticker.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on people calling that out as old school, and we're just in this trend of it has to be low saturation or it's unattractive and you must be causing scarring?
Well, the majority of my people are, since I've been doing it so long, I have a much older clientele. And of course, most of them have been with me for 20, 25 years. So my people, if I did low saturation on them, they'd be like, hello, where are my lips? Where are my brows? Where's my eyeliner?
They'd be mad at you.
Yes. Now, I will say when I do get some younger people in that are more Instagram savvy and they're studying these pictures and they're bringing that stuff in and they're showing me, because that's not typically what my work is.
Right.
I explain to them, okay, you want lip blushing. Just so you know, lip blushing is going to be like a stain. And if that's what you want, we'll start off this way. But when you come back in 6 to 8 weeks, if this is not what you actually want, then we're going to do a more lipstick look. The same thing I tell my ladies. Like, if I try to give you lip blushing, you're going to come back and say, there's no color. Even though there's some color, they're going to think there's no color. So it's more to me about explaining and taking into account what that person wants. Somebody, you're always going to have mean girls, especially when you're somebody like, you know, Shay, she does a whole thing. I don't even know how to do a reel. I don't care to do a reel. You're going to just leave yourself open to people's beliefs, whether they're technicians or they're just random people that are on your feed somehow. So, you know, you just take it, you know, obviously let it roll off your back.
Yeah.
I can say there are certain artists that were doing, you know, the very light shaded eyeliner, foxy liner, this, that, whatever they were. And, you know, a few years down the road, it didn't look good. And so they learned and said, I'm not doing that anymore. Diluting the carbon out and going up the eyelid a little bit. I never really did that. I've just always done classic eyeliners. My goal also is to not have them coming in so often. Like, I don't want to keep, like, if I'm tattooing you for 20 years, I don't want to see you every year. And some people will be like, my friend comes every 6 months. I go, I'm not touching you for at least a year. And at a year, come in and let me take a look. I said 18 to 24 months with this, you know, 2 to 3 years for eyes, 3 to 5 years for lips. You know, I'm going to be the one that makes the decision.
Yeah.
When you get more color put in there. And just have to explain that to them. So I think there's, you know, if you have these perfect lips, some people get perfect lips all the time in their office. And they're 30-year-olds.
Right.
Maybe that's all they want. They want something more temporary.
Right.
So for them, I guess light saturation is great. They want to come back. I have some ladies that go, I want blonde. I don't hardly want to see them. I don't notice. I call them my chickens. I give them that light blonde brow. And then when they come back, I say, you still like this? They're like, yeah, you're right. I want a little bit more. So it's all about the clients. It's not really about anybody else. But if you put your work out there online, you're going to get some flack one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
No,
you
it
just
is
have
the way
to have,
it is. And I wish it wasn't that way. You know, I mean, the body tattoo industry is very versatile, right? You have artists that do Americana, you have artists that do black and gray, that do, you know, all the, you know, neo-traditional Japanese, all these different styles.
Right.
But they don't bash each other for all these different styles. They, you know, but in PMU, you know, there is some of that going on. And I appreciate all styles. You know, when I see a low saturated, you know, like you said, foxy liner, I think Christina Melancheco might have coined that. And she's a good friend of mine. I love her. And she is mega, mega talented at her style that she does. And she probably gets longer, and her style probably ages better than a lot of people's because she mastered it. She's so skilled, right? I love her eyeliners. That's not the type of eyeliner I do. I do more like you, just that classic eyeliner. Most of my clients want black. If they tell me they don't want black in more solid in their initial setting, when they come back for their touch-up, that's when they want black and more solid, right? Yeah. And they want it lasting, you know, roughly 5 years. They don't want to come back a lot for eyeliner. Eyeliner is not a comfortable procedure. No. So I like low saturation. When I see it and it's pretty, I comment. I think it's beautiful. It fascinates me how some of these artists doing low saturation, I mean, just how exquisite their work is. I like medium saturation when it's done well, and I love high saturation when it's done well. I love all the levels of saturation. I love all the techniques, all the styles. When it's done well, I love it. I love it. And yeah, I wish more people respected all the styles when it's done well. Now, it's a different story when it's not done well. And we've seen low saturation and stardusty eyeliners done, oh my Lord, not well. And we've seen classic high saturation not done well, and everything in between not done well, you know? So I just think we should be graded maybe on the aesthetics of it, how well it was done, the skill of it. Rather than just the style or the saturation. That's all that's being considered.
Just, you know, I usually just post healed stuff because most people looking at it don't pay any attention. They don't read it anyway.
Okay.
So, you know, that's one of those things where I'm posting to get business. I'm not posting for anybody else.
Okay.
If people want to like, that's fine. But for me, it's, if you go on my Instagram, you're looking for, hey, man, she does stuff like I like. People sometimes want to know what you're going to look like right afterwards.
Yeah.
How swollen am I going to be? How red I'm going to be? So the people that look pretty decent, I'll post them maybe right after, but I'd prefer to do an after picture.
Right.
Or a before immediately after and a healed, because that's really what I'm going for.
Right.
I'm not really going for the oohs and ahs and the likes because, you know, my people technically aren't even Instagram people. There may be a little bit of Facebook here and there, but they're mostly referrals.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I have a mixed bag, Facebook and Instagram. So you don't even know it, but you just segued me perfectly into my last question. You did. You just segued me into my last question. And this is a good one. I love talking about this. So there are trainers, lots of them now. And those trainers are producing artists that have bought into the trainers' philosophy because they trained with them, that are teaching and promoting there should be absolutely no bleeding, absolutely no swelling, absolutely no this. When you're done that procedure, that fresh procedure, you should be able to take a photo, post it on Instagram, and it looks soft and beautiful. No bleeding, no swelling, no trauma, no nothing. That picture perfect Instagram photo, right? And so that philosophy, that trend, does two negative things, in my opinion. It tricks clients into thinking that's what their procedure should look like right after we're done with them. Like nothing ever happened, like it's healed. Mm-hmm. And two, it really messes with new artists when they look at their freshly done procedure and that client did bleed. There is swelling, there is redness, maybe even a little bruising on an eyeliner, which we get from time to time. But they're looking at these Instagram pictures that are, some are filtered and edited, you know, and they're comparing themselves and their work with that. Clients are bringing in those filtered and edited Instagram pictures and wanting that. So I guess, you know, so you can, I want you to say what you want to say about this. That was a lot that I just gave you. But first, start with, why are trainers promoting and why are artists buying into there should be no bleeding, no swelling, no trauma, or you fucked up, you need to go back to training, you're doing something wrong? Where did that come from? Why is that still a trend? And how dangerous is that? And then you can just ramble on about the Instagram filtering.
Well, I think it's sort of like the whole thing about, you know, the no numbing. Like, sorry, I'm not numbing anybody. Period. The end. Period. I'm just not. I've always numbed, and I don't like hurting people, and I want to keep them as numb as possible.
Clients want numbing.
Yeah, 100%. So as far as that trend, you know, it's just another marketing thing. It's just another way to sell it. Let me show you how to do this where you don't have, okay, maybe some people don't bleed, but pinpoint bleeding is normal. Lots of bleeding, not normal. Even in traditional tattooing, people think blood's just squirting out everywhere. No. But swelling depends on, you know, medications they're on. It depends on so many things. It depends on how much anesthetic you're putting in. It depends on how many times you go over the lip. I just don't see how that can even be a thing. I would just have to call that out in a heartbeat because, you know, I'm about no BS, and that's total BS. I mean, if you made a doll, you worked on latex, yeah, you know, but our bodies are made up of water. You're gonna get swelling when you have trauma.
Yeah.
You may not get bleeding, but you may. You know, I'm a bleeder. I just am. I always have been, probably because my lips have been done 1,000 times. And so my lips always bleed a little bit. You know, it's just the way it is. Little anesthetic, it's done. But, you know, lips are vascular. It's just sort of the way it is. But I don't know. I really guess I haven't been paying that much attention to that. But, you know, it's probably a good thing because I'll probably say something. But yeah, there's always going to be somebody out there trying to sell something. And usually I find that people that are training with that kind of stuff couldn't really make a living doing permanent makeup. So they got to make something up to try to make a living scamming somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm not about that.
Yeah.
Now, once again, somebody could prove me wrong, but you have to have the perfect model. We all know that, you know, we have a 30-year-old with beautiful plump skin, no pores, not on any medication. Probably going to look pretty good when she leaves, especially if she's darker skin. But we can't always pick what we're working on.
No, for certainly, you know, and I, you know, I get people on eyeliners that don't bleed, a little pinprick maybe. And by the time I'm done, and I'm packing color, you know, I'm doing 3 passes. I only do 3 passes. I pack color, I use a 5 shader. And when I'm done, some people, they just look like they got a little puffy, like they've been crying. Yeah. And then I have some people, the minute my needle goes in and out, maybe 10 cycles, poof. They just puffed up on me. Sure. But I know not to lighten my depth, or my color is not going to be there in 7 days. I know not to lighten up. I know they didn't puff up or got swollen because I'm too deep or I'm, overworking the skin. I just know for whatever reason, this person, her eyelid skin is highly reactive. And sometimes they can have more histamines in their body, or whatnot. Some people are just, or they've got a bunch of capillaries on their eyelids, blood vessels. My mom, what was really interesting is really fun for me is at PMU World Live, I did an eyeliner model live, and they mic you up and you got to talk and tattoo at the same time. But I used my OMG Super Black, all iron oxide. And I know, and some of them were really excited to see an iron oxide implant. And so I do my techniques and I'm showing them, now look how I'm moving. I'm in one spot. Look how I'm packing this in, white, black. And the room is just like, oh my, how do you do that? It's not magic. It's just, I'm using a 5 shader and I'm doing circular movements, which are 2 high saturation movements, and so I do one whole pass. They put the camera on her and she's black, like just a soft black. And they think I go, now, do you think I'm done? Do you think she can leave? Yeah, no, that will all fall out. That whole first pass kind of falls out. So I got to go back and do 2 passes, So it was, and when we were done, a little puffy, but nothing obnoxious. But I did explain she could have been obnoxious swollen if she was that client, Right. And then we saw her the next day. She was walking all around the conference. There was 1,000 people there, and a little puffy, but nothing major, and she was cute as hell. But it was really, really interesting and fun for me for them to witness iron oxide black implanting, super easy. And every time I wiped on that first pass, it was black. And I got black on that first pass. And it was just interesting to see their reactions because of what they've been trained and told. Iron oxides don't implant. You can't get black. You have to do too many layers. And, I'm like, no, that's not necessarily true for every artist and every client. Now, would I get this black on the first pass on every client I do? I would be lying if I told you yes. No. Right. But I just happened to, on this model, because she had the skin that allowed me to achieve that. But yeah.
I love it when they're done in 5 passes. I'm like,
yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know it. Yeah, so that's like a myth I've been trying to counter is, on some people you are going to see some bleeding. Some people bleed more than others. On some people you're going to see some puffiness. On some people you're going to see some swelling. Maybe 10%, 5% of my eyeliners, I'll even get a little bit of bruising. You'll start to see creep out a little bit, And I'm somebody that will post that, Robin. I will post that. But I'll say, I know she's swollen. I know she's got some bruising. I know all this. Do you know what I mean? I kind of start with that. And then I'll post her healed result. Do you know?
Let people know that that's absolutely normal.
This was normal for her and maybe 10% of my clients, look like this after I'm done doing an eyeliner on them. When, 70 to 80% of my clients don't. Do you know? Yeah. Okay, so we'll finish up with, what are your thoughts on the editing and the filtering and making that right after picture look so perfect and smooth? That's for marketing, to get the clients to come in. But do you think it's okay that the industry is doing that? Do you think it's misleading? Everybody has different thoughts on it. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think it's misleading. I think it's misleading. And even in the plastic surgery field, they're very used to doing stock images and that kind of thing. And people want to see what they're going to look like the day after and 3 days after. And, just be real about it. Like, the good thing is they look even better than that. They're going to be even more happy.
Right.
you know, but you have to set them up for, I always tell all my people, look, you're probably going to be just fine when you leave here. You can probably go to the store if you feel like it, but don't make any social plans tomorrow just in case. And if you feel like it, go ahead.
Yeah.
But just in case, just in case, you know, at least maybe till half the day, you know, put your tea bag. I use tea bags on the eyes, put your witch hazel on, whatever, keep your ice on. You know, you have an open wound and I just tattooed your face. You know, it's going to feel like a sunburn. But yeah, if people bring me edited pictures and like, I want this, I'm like, that's edited or that's regular makeup.
Yeah.
You know, that's not real. And I just have to be, it's just like for me, I want to be real with people. I want people to be real with me. They're paying good money for my advice and I want to be real with them. I'm not going to say, oh, you'll be fine to go back to work. Because if you work at a bank as a teller, you might be a little puffy and swollen. If nobody cares, or if you're trying to hide it from your husband, I'm like, I can't promise you anything. That's, you know, I'm not getting involved in that.
Right.
But
yeah, you know, I don't get like mad at the editing. Like I've just like quite a long time ago, I just made a conscious choice. I don't want to be mad at anything. I just don't want to be mad at anything or anyone. I don't want to be judgmental. I just don't. But so when it comes to the editing, right? That's what I educate artists on. The buck stops with you. We're never gonna. There's always going to be edited, filtered, highly edited and filtered pictures on Instagram. There's people that just won't stop doing it. So it will be up to you to keep a good, you know, digital, you know, portfolio showing, you know, different examples of your clients. Some clients, when they leave, they look like this. You can hardly tell, very little trauma, you know, and then, but look at this client. She got really swollen and puffy. That's only about 5 to 10% of my clients. And then I show everything in between. And then I always tell them, you know, and how your skin is going to react, I cannot predict. But you're going to fall somewhere, either looking really good like this, or you could kind of look like this. Most likely you're going to look like on this end of the scale, but there's always that chance you could look a little like this. I just prepare them. And I think artists just need to prepare their clients when they come in with these filtered, edited photos, kind of like the pixels, right? Like everybody was coming in wanting pixels, but when they didn't heal with pixels, they were mad, you know, because the pixels really didn't last and heal during the healing process. It ended up just looking like a smoky ombre, shaded ombre. Like you didn't really see the individual healed in dots most of the time.
Yeah, and understanding how it works, especially with a brown expands under the skin. So it's going to give you a soft brow, but the pixelate is more of a method, right? It's not so much a
look.
After effect, right?
But the public thought it was a look. They thought it was a look. And they wanted that look. And so artists had to start educating them. Well, you know, I talked with hundreds and hundreds of artists that didn't understand it was just a method of implantation and not necessarily a healed look, right?
Right.
And I think it was Angie K. I can never say her last name.
Kwiatkowski.
Yeah, I never want to butcher it. So I always call her Angie K. But she's like a super no bullshit artist. Her and I don't always agree on everything, but I mad respect for her. And she's a good educator. And she chimed in on a conversation that that's correct. Most of the time it heals just blended and like a smoky brow. But she said, however, and she posted a picture like this one brow that she did where you could see healed in tiny little pixels. But that's not the ordinary. You know, the ordinary is you're not going to see the healed individual pixels.
I mean, I've trained with her before. You know, some of her clients are, you know, they have that beautiful Polish skin. It's very light. And so you can definitely I could see how you could see that. You have a lot of dehydrated skin in Vegas.
Oh yeah. And sun
We
damaged
have a lot
skin.
of lake people.
Yeah.
So we have all that, the sun damage and everything too.
Oh
But
yeah.
her people that I saw up there were all just gorgeous. Some people all they have is gorgeous people.
So if all the stars aligned, you can get pixels to show up in your healed result, possibly, right?
If you're cross your fingers.
If you're as good as Angie K and you get the right client, and it can happen. Mm-hmm. But I remember her saying that even for her, it heals blended, sometimes, and that's just the way it is. So
sure.
I appreciated her chiming in and being, so transparent and honest about that, because it kind of ended up like a debate. I was watching it turn, like you said, that rabbit hole, a question, someone answers, and then it turns into a healthy debate. And then it just takes this left turn and gets toxic. And now it's not a healthy debate that we can learn from. Now it's just angry people being angry. And so I think we got to work harder on keeping these debates healthy.
Yes.
And because debates are valuable. I think surrounding yourself with people that work differently than you, have different philosophies than you, use different pigments and techniques than you, is really super beneficial, Robin. And understanding why they work that way, and you can learn a lot from them. And having really healthy debates provides from two artists that work very differently and have different philosophies. As long as that debate stays healthy and respectful, there's so much to learn from that. There's so much value in that. So it just upsets me when I see someone jump in and immediately they change the tone from a healthy debate into something now toxic. And once it becomes toxic, I don't know, there's no getting it back. It just spirals and keeps getting more toxic. Yeah.
Well, I think those of us that have been around enough, we can agree to disagree on things, but we still respect each other as colleagues. I don't look at anybody as competition. I look at everybody as a colleague. But, at least we can keep each other in check to some degree.
Yeah.
But, we need to share our knowledge the best that we can. Sometimes on these forums, we just sort of give up because we just feel like people don't want to listen to us. They don't want to listen to our years of experience. And then you just say, okay, I'll just, move on.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, I guess it's one of those things. It's a world we live in where people can hide behind the keyboard and say what they want. And, it's unfortunate. I would be gobbling up all the goodness I could. And you do find some humble people, and you have to stay humble.
Yeah, and there is. I always say there's way more good, wonderful, amazing, kind people in this industry and this world than there are unkind, disrespectful, and mean. It's just the kind, disrespectful, and mean, they just seem to be louder. There's not more of them. They're just louder. And a lot of good, kind people, they back off from that. They don't speak up because they don't want to get attacked. They're afraid, so, that's all. I think this industry is comprised mostly of good, honorable people doing the right thing and care about other artists. I mean, honest to God, if I didn't feel that, I think it would probably be time to retire. I wouldn't want to be a part of an industry that wasn't predominantly filled with artists that were good, kind, honorable, ethical, respectable.
I agree.
Yeah. Well,
I agree.
Robin, this was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say goodbye. Is there anything you want to, I always tell my guests, is there anything, do you have a favorite quote? I'll talk a little bit so you can think. Is there a favorite quote? Is there like a saying, some advice? Is there just, I'll give you the last word. Is there something you want to leave our
I think
listeners
my favorite
with?
quote's just, if you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. You know what Margie Grimm always told me? She always told me, and she's so right. She was almost always right. Not always, but almost always right. And she told me, Teryn, get client management under control fast and real fast, because it will never be the craft itself that hurts you or you end up not liking. It will never be the craft itself. It will be people. People. So develop your thick skin now and learn client and people management now, so it doesn't affect your love of the craft and your love of the industry. And that was probably the best. I can't say it was the best. Margie mentored me for 13 and a half years, so she gave me lots of good advice. But that is something she said to me that I carry like right here every single day.
And I would say now you need that more than ever, because people tend to be a little bit more needy since COVID, I guess, you know. A bit more
understood. Understood.
Get it.
Well, I know you're a busy girl. You're a mom. You go between 2 locations, Tennessee and Atlanta. You see clients. You do a lot of things. You educate your state. So thank you for taking time out of your day and having this conversation with me.
100%.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And you are an avid listener to the podcast too.
I am.
Which I love.
I love it.
I love when you
Going
send me
back and forth
screenshots.
is great.
I know. I love it when you send me screenshots of your dashboard. And Tatter-a-fact is on
get in the car and they're like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "None of your business."
I know. Well, when you do it, I take the phone. Cat, look, Robin, look, Robin. He's listening. It's so cute. It's just so cute and adorable for me, and it makes me smile. I can be in the middle of something that's really upsetting me, but when you get a message like that, it can change everything, and you know, it can get you out of that bad mood or erase that, you know, negative thing someone just said to you and turn your day around. So
absolutely,
I appreciate it. I love you, Robin.
Appreciate you. Love you too.
All right.
Take care.
You take care.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining and hanging out with me and Robin today. What a great episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So that is the truth. That is the tea. And that is Tatter-a-fact. Until the next time, stay in the pursuit of excellence and happiness.